Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your chairs, hold on to your cockpit seats, hold on to your yokes. I'm sorry, actually, hold on to your side sticks because this is about to be good for the next hour or so. Get the popcorn, get a drink, whatever you have to, because today we have the team from FlyByWire here to discuss the latest and greatest from the A380, and you're not going to want to miss this episode. We have quite a few members here on the channel with us today, and so I'd ask one of you guys individually just introduce yourselves, tell us what you do for the project, and we can start asking questions from there. So guys, welcome to the channel, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much. How you guys doing?
Thank you very much. Great being here.
Good. And who do we have up first? Just tell us your name and what are you doing on the project so far? What part of the project you're responsible for?
So my Discord name is Repsol. I'm doing, mostly modeling stuff. This means I'm there to model everything what you could somehow imagine, what you want to have in the sim. Let's say it like this. So I started, I think it was 3 years ago. Just joined there and saw this project, and then I didn't had so much experience with modeling stuff, and everything somehow happened over the last 3 years that I more learned about the stuff. Also with this great community, because if you have questions, you just ask them and expect in a half hour an answer to everything almost. So this is why I kind of stood there, and I'm still here. And thanks for having us.
Great to have you, man. Great to have you.
So I'm Floridude, or Florian, as my real life name is. So in the FlyByWire simulations team, I deal mostly with Avionics development. So basically all of the displays you see and some of the systems behind it. And I'm fairly new to the team. So I joined, I think it was 3/4 of a year ago. And I think I started maybe 1.5 years ago with development for the MSFS. And at the time I joined because I always liked doing software development on the side, and always also, of course, like the flight sim and the community behind it. And I kind of stumbled upon FlyByWire kind of randomly, but it seemed a very good project to work on, with very exciting, of course, aircraft, and also very good development workflow and community around it. So that's why I started and got into it, and kind of transitioned into the team more and more, and I think for now pretty much a year. I wouldn't say full-time, but sometimes it feels like full-time. I've been developing stuff for the A380 and A320, of course. So
Wow.
glad being here.
Wow, yeah, good to see you, man.
So next one would be me. I'm Davey, and I joined like maybe 2 or 3 years ago for the 32NX, doing mostly hydraulics stuff for flight controls, and where it started with the cargo door actually, and then expanding on every other stuff. And then I expanded my actions a bit over stuff like things that will flex on the airplane to give a bit more life to the A380. So the wing flex, for example, everything that would wobble. I recently also worked with Floridude a lot on the BTV function as well, to make this sort of work. So we are kind of happy with this now. And well, that's pretty much it for me.
Super excited to have you guys with us again. We did an interview with you guys, about a year ago, I believe, maybe a little more than that. And we were blown away by everything you guys are working on the A380 and the A320 Neo. And can't wait to see what you guys have to talk about and show now. Any questions, XP, before we get started?
Yeah, what's taking you guys so long?
It's surprisingly complex to develop such a plane. Like every time you dive into one small detail, it just like folds up into a whole tree of questions. That's very interesting, but also very challenging at the same time.
I see. I had a chance to go hands-on with this airplane at Flight Sim Expo. And, what I saw was like, wow, this thing is done. This thing is finished. But, the level of detail that you guys are going into, I suppose you'll probably never be done. But, How has the developmental process been so long since we last spoke? How much have you guys been able to accomplish? How is the challenges that you overcome? How's it been so far since the last year?
Yeah, so I think we managed to so as you could also of course experience at FS Expo, I think right now we have a plane which accomplishes some tasks quite well. So I think in terms of like flyability and having the base systems in place, I think we are in a good place. However, of course, I mean, obviously we are not fully there yet. I mean, that's why it's not released yet. So we are, of course, still working on it and polishing a few systems where we say, okay, this is something we really need to do before we can release it to the public. And I think there's also a really important point which you want to make in terms of expectation management for this release. So so it won't be a fully finished plane. So I mean, it won't be comparable to something which like a payware company will release at first, because in the end, the goal of a release for us is not having a fully fledged plane we can roll out to kind of our customers, but no, we want to have a release to extend the people of or extend the circle of people who can contribute to the aircraft. So it's rather an alpha or a development preview, as we call it, which we would want to roll out, which enables basically more people to join the development team and get more hands on the plane. And this is, of course, what we're working on really hard.
I know we're just getting started. It might be too early to ask this, but is there anything else that the fly-by-wire team is in need of, like whether it be a certain type of expertise, or like what are you lacking in the fly-by-wire team right now to get this aircraft done and future projects done?
Yeah, so I think there's I think multiple or I think actually all us three can basically say something about it. So if I think about the avionics front and about some of the systems we have, it's of course always good to have more developers, more software developers who can speak TypeScript, which is one of our main languages, or for example Rust, who basically have already experience in these software development languages, and are willing to volunteer some time and spend it there. And of course, I mean, what's always I wouldn't call it a requirement, but what's always good, of course, is if they are somehow flight sim avid and of course into aircrafts and developing it. So I think in general that's a skill set we're looking for. And more specifically, it's always good to have some people who are also experienced with the flight sim development and the flight sim config files. For example, tuning flight models, tuning the engine model. That is going to be a big part of the development in the next time, I guess. And I'm sure Rep and Davey can, of course, also tell you something.
Yeah, and we might not just want to tune the engine model, but if we have some manpower like to do our own engine model, that would be really great. That would be one thing we would need manpower to work on and to expand, because yeah, there are a lot of details on this plane. There are things that are not done yet. There are things that you haven't seen anywhere that are already there. So it's the state of the airplane is difficult to describe, because there are those stuff you've never seen anywhere else before, and those maybe more easiest stuff that maybe are not still in yet, or not as perfect as we would want them to be, like the engine model would be something like this. So yeah, I mean, manpower and people passionate, that's really what we need anyway.
Well, the good thing is that you guys are here, and you guys are here to talk, and you guys are here to show some stuff, what you have done already. And I'm actually excited that you guys, we've managed to see a couple of clips for like 60 seconds of what you guys have accomplished, and we're excited for you guys to show that off to the audience to see where we are. Not what we need, going, but what you've done so far, and I'm sure you guys are very proud of it. So without further ado, man, what would you love to show the audience, just to let them know, hey, we're here, we're working, this is what we have done. And just for me personally, I'm impressed with what I saw for the last 60 seconds before we started recording here. But what would you love to show the audience now, just to get their appetites wet and ready to go for display whenever it's released? What would you like to show off to us that you've got done so far?
I think it would make sense to start with the outset and the 3D model, right, Rep?
Yeah, why not? I mean, so here at the moment is what maybe you guys already saw at FS Weekend or on some clips we had on YouTube, is that we are on a good way to present a fully cabin.
Wow.
This means all of the economy class seats, all of the business class, all of the first class, and on top of that, we had to figure out a version or a layout which we use, because to be honest, it would be too much work to make for every airline every layout different and that you would be able to select. So we decided to take the latest Emirates interior.
Good
We
choice.
also will try to make it like this, that if someone wants to change these textures, there will be different texture sets where people and livery makers or other texture artists or so can go through, and then being able to change the cushion color or the sidewall colors or the monument colors or everything what normally for a livery maybe would be needed. Because unfortunately, it's not a 320 where you just have maybe the napkins, and this would be fairly easy. No, for the 380, everything is a little bit more complex. So at the moment, we are in a stage where we have the main deck almost completed with everything except galleys and so on. This will be maybe after release coming, because everything is a progress which will continue even we released, or even 1, 2, 3, 4 years. It will continue all the time. It's kind of a never-ending story.
Yeah.
And this is also what is so lovely about this project, because you will learn more and more and more. Even we release it, we will still learn more and more and more, especially with the more input is coming. And maybe our 380 team can also grow later, because people will say, hey, I saw this, but I know maybe I can do it like this and this to improve stuff. And this is why we are also welcome everybody who want to contribute to our projects, like the A320X or like the A380X. And everybody is welcome here. So if there's anyone who want to help out, just join our Discord channel and say, hey, I want to help you. No problem. So what we have here at the moment is, just a little door.
Oh, wow. Look at how the sun. Wow! Look at how the sunlight hits the inner part of the door panel there when you open it.
The problem about this is MSFS, because it's not actually the sunlight from the other side; it's directly outside the sun. So MSFS is doing weird stuff, and this is also what I had to learn when I was modeling. That especially in terms of light, things are really complicated. Just sit in your 320X or in other aircrafts and just sit in the cockpit and call the tow truck. What do you think is happening? Yes. You see the caution light in the cockpit,
Right.
And it's a really annoying thing, but this is how the engine of MSFS is made. And maybe there are improvements for MSFS 2024. But we all will see what will come. So I think for everybody it will be also a learning process. And we don't know when we will release, maybe before, maybe after. We have no idea. And our main goal is to release it for 2020. And we have to see how the port to 2024 is going, also in terms of modeling, texturing, and everything. So we are using Blender for the model, because Blender is kind of a genius program. It's a free software you can use. There are many possibilities to get add-ons who are really improving your workflow with everything. And there you need to find a good way to have an exporter who is actually working properly in terms of what you want later. Because MSFS is mainly made in 3ds Max, so they have an exporter for 3ds Max, which is working completely fine. All the SDK is made for the use of 3ds Max. There are just some hints for Blender. This is maybe not working, or this is other expected to be working. They started to make a plugin, the importer-exporter, but it's really tricky to get it really working. You need to find the right Blender version. You need to find the right plugin version. And especially with applying materials, it's really complicated. So when we, for example, go in the cockpit, what we have is kind of purple coloring effect for the displays, that from a certain angle, you have different colors going on. So you have a little greenish tint, and depending on how the light is going, you have a little pearl effect. And this is also not really planned to have it in Blender and the plugin properly working. So we really had to find a version which was working, that we can have the possibility to replicate this effect, because displays are made with an anti-glare shield inside. So this means you have a little foil between the display glasses, which helping to reduce reflection. And when you sometimes see on pictures, you can see this little purple golden color. And we tried somehow to get it working. So, but it's not where I would say, okay, it's pinpoint what we need. It also really depends on the weather conditions you have. So if you change the light or the clouds, you can directly see now, oh, we have a different color here going. And these are all things we had to take into account. Also, when you turn on another light here, the colors are changing also depending on this light. So it's a rough progress, but you are learning. So right now, yeah, I'm not the best with moving inside. So we have a new staircase, or Mike textured the staircase.
Wow.
So it's kind of like, yeah.
That is gorgeous. Can we see upstairs? Is upstairs done?
Yeah, we will go soon. It's just about, here you can see you have some little accents from the Emirates, because Emirates put these trees here.
Right.
We put just a little sign here. We are not sure if we will keep it like this, so...
Looks good.
Yeah, that is the fly-by-wire sign, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's not a 100% correct color or scheme, but the form of it is, yes, ours.
So, it's an artwork. It's a piece of artwork, so it won't be exact.
Yeah, good. I thought when I was looking, because I don't know how many pictures I was watching to get the stairs somehow modeled. Yeah, I was looking up, I was looking down, and then I was seeing this, and I thought, why not putting a fly-by-wire logo there? Okay, let's do it. Okay, it's looking okay, you know.
Nice.
So here behind, here behind you will normally find the showers, which yet are not there, and we will have to see if we will put those in, because there's also a thing. A 380 is not small. It has a lot of seats, a lot, really. It's a lot. So the problem with this is also that your polygon count is going really high. The polygons are like, is the mesh of the 3D model. So this means the more polygons you have, the more points your CPU has to calculate where he puts the mesh. So raising the poly count means also you are going on the CPU performance. So for us at the moment, or especially for me, because I'm kind of the CPU performance collector with all the polygons, it's like
Right.
this, that we are still in the progress of finding the best way how we can increase the performance. So everything is not like this, that you go inside and feel like, okay, it's looking like a PMDG. Yeah, the performance must be the same. No, it will be not. I will say it like this. I will be honest. So depending on the system, you could expect, okay, I don't have the best performance here. But this doesn't mean that it will be always like this, because for us, it's a lot of stuff which we have to focus on one or on 2 points, which means your GPU and CPU. And as we are not professional third-party flight simulator developers, it's like this, that we first focused on, okay, let's get our stuff done in a state where we can say, okay, we can now release it. And beside of every other progress we have and development in systems, we will also go through everything and try to increase the performance. This can be avionics, systems, modeling, texturing, everything.
And if I might say so, that's what many developers, real third-party developers, have done. Payroll developers, they release the product, the performance is not the best, but they got it done, and then they go back and then do a refresh and improve the performance later, but they have to get it done first. So I definitely understand the way of doing that is the way to go.
Yeah, and it's always also a very difficult trade-off, because of course you want to release something as soon as it's kind of feature ready, so as soon as the principal features work. But at the first iteration where you implemented all the features and have 3D model and the textures in place and so on, it won't be the most performant model. So then you kind of have to choose whether you want to release it as early as possible with a subpar performance, or you want to release it later with some optimization in place, but no changes on the functionality. And I think most companies and most groups use the first one. And for now, it's also our approach to kind of see it as part of the process. So performance optimization will be part of the development for quite a while. So this is something where we know we have a lot of work to do. May it be on the model side, on the avionics side, and so on. But we are already, of course, in parallel looking at what our biggest weak spots are and how to improve them. But it's just not a simple task. That's what you want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. Can we get a little bit more glimpse of the first class cabin here? Because I'm fascinated by the Emirates style first class cabin here. It really is impressive and nice.
Yeah, that seat right there, I've been looking at for the last it looks really good.
Absolutely. Look at that. The detail in the leather and the stitching and the diamond pattern and
and the wood grain as well on the
wood grain as well.
pedestal there. Really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a nice glimpse outside to the engine.
Ooh,
Nice.
wing view. Oh, it's turning too. There you go. I mean, one possibility, I'm not sure if it's possible. I've seen third-party developers do a thing where you, as the user, can turn the cabin on and off. Is that a thing? Is that easy to accomplish, or is that hard to do?
So for me, it's just, I have to set up the lights, which mean you have the system config file where you can put all the different lights inside, and then you also have the effect files where every line which you put in the system CFG is referring to.
Right.
And then the question is later, okay, how we want to going to do this? Do we want to make it just via the EFB, or are we going full realism and we are making a FAB where you would be able to put different themes in lights there? For example, you have the boarding lights, then you have maybe the in the morning or the breakfast light, lunchtime light, and so on. So for me, it's just I have to place the lights, and then it's, I think, up to our system guys.
I think what he was saying was like being able to actually completely disable the cabin for those who are having performance issues.
I thought we were speaking about the lights. Sorry.
No, that was good detail too.
That's
That was
good.
good to know.
On the lights, that's good on the lights as well. Yeah.
So at the moment, yes, we have a kind of rudimentary possibility to do that. This means we put something here, so no cabin.
Look at that.
Nice.
Already done. It's already done. That's good. Wow.
But the problem with the sim is as well that a lot of stuff is still getting loaded, being in your RAM.
Ah.
So there we have to see how we can approach this, but we know that it's helping in terms of performance. Yes, of course. And we also want to give the possibility to the community later to say, okay, I don't want a cabin. I want to have more performance. Okay, go ahead. Because we know that, yes, this cabin, especially with the amount of seats and stuff you have there, it's really hungry what your resources is.
How many seats in this configuration are you using?
If I would know this now out of my head, but it's
approximately.
I really can't count it at the moment, but I mean it's just going down and just looking and seeing all the seats. So, and now at the moment we can go to the business class, and here you will see a little bit more of how stuff is looking when it's in progress.
I keep forgetting that this is not a 747. This is a complete upper deck back to front as well. Wow.
There's more behind it. Yeah.
Wow.
There's more.
See here at the moment is some progress going on for the doors. Luckily, all doors on the upper deck are the same. So for me, it's easy. I just can make it one time with all the animations, with everything. And then I just need to copy and paste it.
Wow, look at the water bottles in the seat.
Wow, that is detailed.
So we put also a little bit of some of our developer names here. So we have here FlyByWire. We have here Chaos is also one of our developers. So we try to make some details like this everywhere.
Yeah, fun.
When you later go through the cockpit, you will find stuff. If you go through the cargo, you will find stuff. So
very nice, very nice. How is the progress on the exterior modeling as well?
So on the exterior, yeah, don't worry about stuff like here or there. This is where my sunshades went, because what we are actually planning is, when you just look on a video from an A380 business class or first class, and I don't know if you ever seen this, but you have actually two different sunshades. One is a little, kind of light paper made one, which is folded, and it's folding up when it's going up, and it's blinding a little bit more light, but you still have light from outside. And then you have the actual plastic hard one, which is then hiding completely the light. And there I'm at the moment also trying to get this animation right, that you later be able to sit there, press the knob, and this thing is automatically going up and down.
And that's for the whole cabin?
I mean, for the whole cabin, we have for the lower deck, for premium economy and economy class, we have the normal sunshades. So we will see also in terms of performance, if we can make for every seat one individually, that you can drag those up and down.
Wow.
And for the upper deck, you have the electric ones. So you press a knob and all of your windows, which are, for example, in the first class in your suite, which could be 2 or 2.5, almost 3, going up and down just by pressing the knob. Yeah, this is kind of the plan for me. but we have to see later how things are going. So when we see exterior-wise, so what I did in the last weeks was, with help of Davey, mostly Davey, getting some better wing flex. So this means that our wings are more flexible than others, I would say. Because what we actually did is that we have 4 different stages where
Oh wow.
the wing is moving. So this is just now the inner part which is moving, what you can see.
Wow.
I will leave it like that. It will be looking funny soon. So then we have the next stage, which is at engine number 2, where the wing is moving.
I like how
Then-
it twists a little bit too.
The problem is with this wing flex stuff is, unfortunately, there's just one video which is showing a stress test of a wing from a 380.
Right.
But there's not much you really can think about, okay, this giving me a lot of good references. So what we have here now is at engine number 1, stuff is moving. And then we have the last one, which is just the tip which is moving. So, and when you then see this wing, yeah, it's kind of flexy.
It's
let's
really
say.
cool to see. I've never seen this demonstration before. Usually we see the final product of all of it working together, but I never realized it took that many like instances to make the entire wing flex. Or is this something that's unique to fly-by-wire, or is this typical to break it into so many parts for the flex?
So I don't know about other developers, but
I think that's the first.
Yeah,
Is it a
it's
first?
kind of a first, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, because usually you just have one value which is handled by MSFS to do the wall flex. And the point is, with this kind of systems, for such a huge plane, you cannot do a correct wing flex, because the point is you would not be able to have like the wing almost completely up, but still having the wing tip shaking a bit, because it will be only one number, so you cannot have it up with the tip shaking or down with the tip shaking. So with this kind of systems, thanks to Repsol animations, we animated multiple sections, and then we build up from scratch a physical systems which is computing all the soft body physics. And so then even if you refuel the plane, it will impact the wing, and depending on the bending of the wing, you can even guess where is the fuel actually.
So
Wow.
If you
what
put
is
the fuel on the exterior, you would see the tip going down, and if you fill up the inner part, it would be more like the inner section that would go low.
Could
And,
you demonstrate that
everything would
really
wobble.
quick? The fuel, if that's working.
Yeah. I hope in my version, because there's also a thing, we are using GitHub, so
Developer
You-
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
so you can open a PR yourself, and then it needs to be tested and merged later on. So we also have a really good QA process for everything, so that stuff is not getting merged and causing problems. Yes, of course, sometimes it's causing problems, but it should not that much, because it's fairly good tested before. So
maybe to jump in for a second, sorry, Rep, to maybe explain for those people who are not as familiar with software development as we are. So GitHub, or basically Git, is a system which allows us to store the source code files in a distributed manner, and basically collaborate on one version, which is stored on the server. And when we open PRs, that means we open pull requests. That means one contributor is working on a specific feature, And this feature is developed on a branch, so on a version which only contains the changes for this feature. And if you feel that it's ready to merge, so to kind of bring it into the main version, which everyone can use, then we open a pull request, and then we kind of have a predefined process, which is, from my point of view, a very well-oiled machine. So a very a process which is proven in use and very good right now. This basically means that there's another contributor looking at the code and seeing whether everything is correct, and they have to approve it. So we have some kind of 4 eyes principle on all the code. And then after that, our internal quality assurance team can get on this pull request and test the features whether they implement correctly. And only if that all is passed, then we can merge it to the main version, and then it's kind of in the product.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. I'm watching the fueling going in here, and the wing is actually flexing with the weight of the fuel in the wing. I must say that outside of Airbus, you guys are probably the only team that's gone in detail of the A380 and what makes it work and what the component and parts are. You know, I don't know if any other team that's doing this. And yeah, it's a simulator, but still, you guys are doing research on how this stuff works, just like you would in the real world. This is fascinating.
Oh, yeah, so a lot of our time is actually being spent on looking for references and looking for explanations on how different system works. And these are very sparse, so we have to do a lot of interpolation, a lot of reverse engineering to actually somehow know what the systems are doing. So yeah.
So many questions. Let's start with the rudder. Explain.
Just a moment.
Oh, okay.
Sorry for interrupting you. Look on the vertical stabilizer.
Yeah.
So what we also did is that we have the whole tail being able to shake. This means what you can often see during landings is that the whole tail, the rudder, the vertical stabilizer, everything is moving. So we also have wing flex here, as you can see.
Yeah, so if you rotate, you will see the elevator bending down because of the force, the aero force acting on it, so it will bend down when you rotate.
Yeah, because we tend to think that the horizontal stabilizer don't move, but it actually does, doesn't it?
Yes, it's
That's
moving
the wingspan
quite a lot.
of the 32NX, pretty much. Same wingspan. So yeah, it will move.
Really?
Yes.
The horizontal stabilizer
Yep.
is the same length of the A320NX.
Almost.
Wow.
Almost the same wingspan, or the wingspan of the 32NX.
Wow.
That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. That's some stats.
Yeah,
there.
that flex looks amazing on the horizontal stabilizer.
Yep.
And now you can also see a little bit of the wings, that they are also moving. It's not so rough here on this tarmac, but yeah.
Just on the grass.
Okay, we go on the grass, Davey. It's fine.
That's something we added as well.
Davey, I told you I don't want to make this that often again.
Model.
But okay, let's go on the grass again.
Yeah, we will wash it then afterward.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think it was KLM who did this the last time, so for 777, so they can help us.
Yep, don't try this at home. Oh, there it is. Yep. There it is. It's on rough terrain, so it moves.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Are the engines moving or shaking as well?
Yeah, the engines are just linked to the physics model of the wing flex, so they won't move like randomly. They will only move if the wing moves above the pylon. So that's pretty much all physically simulated.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Oh,
So you can also see this little engine wobbling going on.
Yep. Absolutely.
That wing texture looks amazing, by the way.
So,
thanks to Mike.
On takeoff roll with wings fully loaded like this, do you get to see the wing starts coming up when lift is applied to it, or when it starts to do the lifting?
Yes.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So what we just can quickly do is we reload the session.
That's a lot of
And
work. That is a lot of work that has gone into this. You know, I keep saying
this
that
was
now.
not easy to make as well, because when you do something like from scratch, which is not from MSFS, then you have some difficulties, like we need to compute ourselves the lift, because you cannot access the lift from the sim, and we need to simulate the lift on the whole wing. So we had to kind of figure out how to compute the lift at every wing position, which
Right.
is sad because MSFS have it already, but you cannot access it. So we had to recompute this.
Wow.
So you have those effects where the wing will just bend up with the lift, and also if the spoilers deploy after touchdown, you should see the wing like really dropping from
Right.
the lift, just disappearing instantly. Still
So
something
I
we
tell
might
you,
improve, but yeah, it sort of works already a bit.
Yeah, nice movement of the what do you call those? The
Leading edge
forward
slats.
leading edge
That's-
slats. That's
yes.
nice.
And what it was also important that when you have the flex, that nothing is clipping, because this means that one object is going to another object, because everything is flexible, you know. And
Ah,
when you have other parts also on this flexing on the wing, you need to make sure that everything is in every position, not going into other objects.
right.
So what we do now is,
I guess the Airbus engineers had the same issue. They didn't want anything to scrape when it flexes.
so
Right.
we have 23, just let's make sure that our wind is okay. We have live weather, but I'm not sure about the live weather here.
Make sure you have enough
23,
runway.
let's say like here, so
We'll see.
I'm not the best pilot, I will tell this directly. So don't judge me on my flying skills here, please. I barely know how to start
We
this
don't
one.
judge.
Yeah, I think it's also very typical of developers. So I think 99% of the time we're starting the sim is mostly just for development stuff. Also staying on the runway and doing stuff.
So what we also did, or what we can see here now, is that we had to improve the textures on our engines, that you actually have this spinner effect, which is then also when you slow it a little bit down, going to the other direction due to the rotation speed and so on.
Wow.
Yep, the nose cone animation I'm watching. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. Look at that.
And when you see this now, you're thinking this is a 3D object, right?
Right.
No, it's not. It's made out of different layers where you had to kind of bake an animation which is blurry, that you have the blurry edges, and then you are stacking, I think it was 8 layers I had, or maybe more.
Wow.
And then when you're rendering this, you're making the rendering not only from the front, you're also going and making slices of it. And this is giving you the effect that this is looking like a 3D object. But it's not. It's just layers. And then the blades are baked, but like slices. And this is giving you the effect of this. Because otherwise the animation from MSFS don't allow you high speeds. So this is a problem what we have at the wheels at the moment, that when they are spinning with high speed, they are getting really, it's looking like frame gen, especially frame gen, is causing their problems.
Oh, that's why that looks like that.
Yeah. So when you see an aircraft where the wheels are really looking like
Blurry.
artifacts around, then you know they didn't made a blur texture for it.
Ah.
So let's start now. Just trying to hold the center line somehow.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I try to.
He's good. He's dead on point. He's holding center, all right.
That wing is raising.
Yep. Yeah, those are G-forces. I can see it through the wing.
Yes.
Yeah. When you go down and up, you could see the wing react to it with negative G's. There we go, right there. And that's negative G. And there's positive. So you can see the tip going up and down.
Yeah,
Wow.
but you don't see the whole wing moving. When you
No,
see the
exactly.
root of the wing,
Right.
it's not moving because it's like the real one. The more you go outside of the root, the weaker the wing is. And it also has to be weaker because all the stress which is coming, it has to go somewhere. So the stress is going from the inside to the outside.
Yeah, and the computer also the forces just for each surfaces. So if the ailerons are moving, it will more likely bend the tip of the wing.
Then you can also see the engines, how they are going a little bit tighter because of the flexing, how you almost can see the underside of the engine one.
Yeah, then it comes closer together and
Yes.
overlaps. Yep. I must say that you're getting great performance on this. I haven't seen one stutter yet from your sim. It's great performance of the plane, as it
I
is.
mean, we can show the truth. I don't. So,
40 FPS. I don't look at FPS. I look at if it's stuttering or not. That's my benchmark.
So for me, it's like this, that, it's also depending on what your priorities are. If you want a full package of realism, like GSX fully loaded with everything, like FSLTL or other traffic add-ons you have, and having everything full, of course this will have an impact, yes. Of course it will also have an impact if you start on LAX,
Right.
depending on the third-party developer who made it, or if you're starting on Hamburg, also depending then on the third-party developer who made the airport or which you choose, because you have the possibility for airports to have sometimes maybe one or two developers who developed it. But yes, the 380 is, let's say it like this, it's something which is huge. It's huge. So this means also that a lot of stuff is going on, especially when you think about the whole cabin. This was never something which we thought we would, oh my gosh, which we thought we will put in a release version. So yes, we are still trying to find where we really can think about, okay, here we can gain some performance, here we can reduce this or that.
Well, looking at it now, it looks great. It flies good. How are the systems now? How far along are you in the system development? Since we're in the cockpit here, we can look at where would you rate yourself as far as where you want to be, and how long will how much more to go percent-wise? How far along is the systems of the thing to a point where you're happy with it for release? Because that's what everybody wants to know. When? But how far along do you think you are in it?
Yeah, that might be a question for me then. So of course we try to refrain from phrasing it in terms of percentage, which of course could be the easy answer, which everybody wants, but in the end, unfortunately, it's not that simple. Because as you already correctly stated earlier, it'll never be finished, or rather it'll take a long time until it's finished. But for us, it's just about right now getting it to a state where we can release it as a development preview or as an alpha version to the public. And for that, we defined a pretty clear like goals, and in terms of content, we are quite clear on what we want to achieve there. So in the end, simply broken down, we want to have it in a state which is good enough so that you can do A to B flights on VATSIM without annoying any controllers too much or any other pilots. This means all basic functions or all basic systems have to be in place. And I think if we look at that, we are making really good progress. And there's of course a few systems missing. For example, we don't have all of the systems pages on the system display implemented yet, and there's a few of them missing as well. We also have some bugs still where we say, okay, this is a showstopper, and we really cannot allow any release of this plane with this still being present there. And there's of course not only the plane development itself, the aircraft development, but also a lot of things which are not directly visible. So of course, we have to make sure that once the plane is ready, we can somehow distribute it and the servers are ready for it. So of course, we have to have enough capacity download-wise that we can serve all users which want to download it. We have to make sure that our support system also is somehow capable of dealing with multiple aircraft, and of course also somehow prepare our own people there. Of course, we have to prepare some sort of documentation so that, I mean, this is kind of part of the don't annoy VATSIM controllers too much part. We have to have a minimum set of documents to make sure that everyone who kind of gets into this plane has a chance to actually learn about the differences between the A380 and the A320 Neo, for example, or at least some sort of starter or beginner's guide, which kind of leads you through the process of flying this thing, because it might look very similar to other Airbus aircraft at the first glance, but I think there's a lot of details which are a little bit different. And maybe, I mean, Rep, are you finished? I could offer to just switch to my cockpit and show you a few of the differences systems-wise and avionics-wise we have.
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Real quick question before we get into your system. So I want to ask this because you kind of mentioned this earlier about how a lot of people think that the A380 system-wise is just another Airbus. Can you, while showing us some of the avionics updates, kind of show us some of the things that are special and unique to the A380?
Yeah, for sure. So so we can start and do this kind of instrument by instrument. And this is also kind of well reflected in our code. So for some of the systems, we use the code for the A320 and the A380X pretty much the same way. One example of this would be the flight management system backend. So when it comes to flight planning and lateral and vertical navigation, we use the same code as the A320 does, because also in the background, there is on both aircraft, there's a system from Honeywell installed in the real version, and it kind of behaves very similarly. But let's start at the left maybe. So what we can see here is basically an aircraft just on a runway, not fully ready for takeoff, but we are nearly there yet, and we can just kind of do the rest of the steps together to get this airplane in a takeoff ready state, and explain some of the systems along the way. So as we entered on the FMS, so I think I spared you this part because sometimes it just takes a long time to set it up and not always fun to watch. So I entered the V-speeds already. I chose a flap setting of 2 for now. We'll go over the THS later on. And we can see here that we chose V-speeds of 133, 144, and 155. We have a flex setting of plus 67 degrees. We have a flaps of 2, a THS setting of 35% CG, and PAXA on as well as anti-ISO off. And we just use the standard threshold, the standard throttle thrust reduction, and the acceleration height. And so what we of course need to do first is set our flaps to the correct takeoff setting, which we're going to do now. So flaps 2. And what you can see now is, of course, that this is also different from the A320. We can see the flap setting in the lower left corner of the PFD, of the primary flight display. So we can see the slats moving on the left side and the flaps moving on the right side. It takes a while, as does the real thing as well. We can see a small indication of the slats on the top. Now they disappeared again, so they are essentially not extended. That's why we don't see them. And at the bottom, we also see the landing gear status, so which is now, of course, extended. And what you can also see is if you now arm the spoilers for takeoff, then we can try actually extending them and see what the indication there is. Then we can see actually the spoilers extending, so we can see the kind of the live status of the spoilers right there.
Wow.
And now it's in the fully extended position, and if we retract them again and arm, then we see a small triangle above it, which is this right here. So this tells us spoilers are armed. Then if there are any memos, so for example, autopilot off or any other indications which are really important for the pilot, then we can also display them here above the flaps and gear indication. So memos is basically this part on the right on the engine warning display. Some of the most important ones, which kind of need immediate attention, we can also, of course, see here on the left side. Then on the right side, we see the trimmable horizontal stabilizer, the THS, which also operates a little bit differently on the A380X than it does on the A321X. So we don't. So for once, the trim control is different. So we don't use the trim wheel next to the thrust levers, but rather we use the pitch trim switches at the rear of the pedestal. And using this, we also not really directly set any sort of degree setting, but rather we set a corresponding CG setting directly. So what we can see here in this indication is on the right side, the center of gravity, so the CG as it's measured from the aircraft. And on the left side, we can see the current setting for the THS. And by this amber color, we see it as actually mismatching. So what I can do right now, and maybe we can also look at the flight controls page to support that. So right now we can see the THS is at 1.1% up, which corresponds to 40.9% CG. And I'll just move it down to move out of the green area to see what happens. So basically the green area is the kind of certified area of the aircraft. And if you go outside of that, just move it down a little bit, then we can see that it displays a red out of range arrow. And this tells us pretty quickly and pretty obviously that something is wrong with the THS setting. And of course, if you set takeoff thrust, then the aircraft is going to complain in lots of other ways as well. If we now go back, we want to reach not the amber, but the green part, which is, so basically if this indication is green, this tells us, okay, we are in a kind of allowed position for takeoff, which also matches to our actual CG of the aircraft, which is where I want to get it now. Let's go down to 35. It also accepts plus minus 2%, I think, somewhere like that, but let's put it exactly 35 degrees. So that's also fine now, check for that. Then for the navigation display, we have a very obvious difference already here, which is the OANS, so the Onboard Airport Navigation System, sometimes also called the Airport Navigation Function. And so some of the A320neos have this as an airline option. But I think on the A380X or on the A380 is actually standard. And also it's a little bit bigger and of course also somehow behaves a little bit differently. And you will also find this function on the A350, for example. So what we can see here is basically airport map. So this was very meticulously implemented by Holland, one of our avionics experts, and a lot of work was really gone into that. I think it's really, really impressive to see that.
Is this for every airport in the world?
Not every, but a lot of airports. And actually, I think we do have more airports than the real A380 database, because the real A380 database only uses airports where the A380 can actually land. But we, for this function right now, use the Navigraph airport database, and this contains a lot more. All of the smaller airports, I don't know whether we'll find something small.
So you'll see A380s in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in the sim.
Oh yeah.
I think there will be people who will go other airports like Courchevel or so. Trust me, this will happen.
That'll be the first place some people will go.
I mean, there's one YouTuber particular who will do this. We all know him. So we will see.
001.
Yeah, so for example, Stuttgart in Germany, I'm pretty sure there's no 380 service there. But there's, of course, other airports which are maybe even much smaller and we'll still have the OANS database.
That's good.
So yeah, let's go back to Dubai. and switched back to arc. And what we can also see, I think we saw this briefly a second ago, there's also really interesting animations, which are actually from the real life examples. So usually avionics are pretty dry and not too visually appealing because they have to have a lot of information in a very concise manner. But here somehow they allowed to have some snazzy animations. So if you like actually switch, I go back to the center of the aircraft.
Wow.
If you like switch between the modes, it actually like animates back and forth. That's kind of funny. And even like if you zoom out and in, there's also an animation behind that. For example, if you would do that on the navigation display, there is not a nice animation. It's just basically a green range change, and then it waits for the data to be loaded. So yeah.
Wow.
Okay, let's continue with the engine warning display, EWD. So I think, of course, the obvious difference, we have 4 engine instead of 2. And also, of course, the thrust reversers operate a little bit differently. So if I now go into thrust reversers, we can see the thrust reversers for the engine 2 and engine 3, so the inner engines only, which is of course desired because the other ones don't have reversers installed. And also the thrust gauge is a little bit different. For example, we are not going to see N1 or N2 indications in normal modes on these, but rather they display a thrust value, meaning 0% would be a windmilling aircraft, so no thrust applied and not even idle thrust. And 100% would be the maximum allowed and kind of not even allowed, but basically maximum possible thrust, which can be produced by the engines. And so this is also one part where we, of course, need a lot of work still and might need another helping hand to really accurately implement this acute system, how it's called, so the thrust translation, and of course also the engine model behind it. Because to be transparent, right now it's basically a beefed up version of a LEAP engine from the A380X, which we of course tuned a lot to have a good response behavior and also of course increased thrust and so on. But there's a lot of work which we should and could do there. Yeah, let's go back into the normal thrust, and then we can also see it's like the blue donut at the outer part of the thrust gauge, which kind of tells us the target thrust you want to set.
So not only does the A380 only use thrust reversers in the inner engines, but they don't even have them installed on the outer engines. I didn't realize that.
Yes, right. Yeah, so I think maybe Rep knows a little bit more about why they are installed and why not, or David maybe knows. I think just to save weight because you don't need them anyways there.
So for the installation itself, so the cowlings which you have around the actual engines are the only differences on those engines, which means that engine number 1 and 4, they have fixed cowlings which aren't moving at all. And then on 2 and 3, you have the cowlings which are moving and also making you the possibility to use them as thrust reversers, but the engine inside of this is all the same. So this means there might be then some changes in the ECU or something like this for the engines to behave different because they are meant to be thrust reverser engines. But the engines itself, as far as I know, are all the same, but just the cowlings are different and being able to provide you then thrust, reverse thrust. Because when you think about an engine, what is the engine doing? It's not reversing the fan. No, it's just still pulling out air, but the air is getting reflowed, which means you have kind of shuffles behind this, which are then closing the main outer airflow ring and then pushing or redirecting the flow to the forward.
Right.
Yeah. A perfect example would be the clamshell doors on an MD-80. You know, shows
on
you
a
that
737 on the older ones.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the choice not to have them on the 1 and 4 would be mainly because of the width of the airplane, that they would be more prone to ingest dirty air on the far outside of this huge airplane. That's probably one of the reasons.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah, but we can assure you, of course, even with two reversers only and the auto brake we have installed, it's good enough and fast enough to stop it on the runway. And of course, also when you use our brake to vacate system, the BTV system, you can really well predict where you are going to stop, which braking power you need, and the plane pretty much handles everything for you.
Is
So
that
yeah, speaking about brakes.
sorry, is that bottom standby instrument working yet, or is that not for now?
Yeah, so that's disabled for now. That's also a field of work for us at the moment. We use the old standby instrument from the A320neo at the moment. And the lower one is basically the same kind of hardware module, but they also a different page. So the secondary navigation display, which we don't have implemented at the moment. So instead of having two flight instruments there, we just chose to disable the lower one. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Do you know what's going to be the max gross weight on your version of the plane? Do you have that figure yet? Like how heavy is it going to be, max gross weight? Just curious.
Yeah, so we do, but I don't know it by heart. So we target a very specific version of the airplane. So kind of a specific serial number of the manufacturer, but I don't know the max gross weight by heart. Maybe Rep or Davey?
I'm assuming that this is heavier than a 747, correct?
I'm pretty sure of that, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we just look at the zero fuel weight, I mean, let's go to the fuel and load page. So on this one, the zero fuel weight is 300 tons, and we're having 107 tons of fuel right now. So I think we can just go to the EFB and maybe check a little bit. So the fuel goes up to, I think it's 260 tons. And the payload, I think if we have max 466 passengers and some cargo on there, I think for that version, the zero fuel weight is, there it is. Maximum zero fuel weight is 737 tons. So 1,000 kilograms. And then we have basically another basically 260 tons of fuel. So it's a lot.
Big baby.
That's 1.5 million pounds. Oh my word.
Yeah.
For
It's
us in the
heavy thing.
US,
Yeah.
it's heavy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Yeah.
All right, let's continue with the takeoff setup. So basically what I also did, I armed the RTO, so the rejected takeoff mode for the auto brake, which is a little bit done differently here. So we have a separate button for the RTO arm, and the auto brake is then also set using this rotary knob right there, if we want to use it for landing. And I think that concludes pretty much a takeoff setup. There's maybe one thing left we can press, which is the takeoff config. But before we do that, I think it's also good to show another new feature which we actually haven't shown before, at least not in a video, and that's the normal checklist part. So the engine and warning display, so the upper ECAM, which is how it's sometimes called on the A320, also features a checklist function, which means that you can basically handle your normal checklists and also your abnormal checklists from the engine warning display, which is again kind of controlled by the ECAM and the flight warning system. And what I did until now was I completed the first 3 checklists, and now we are basically at the taxi checklist, which is the next available one. And it's always a little bit tedious scrolling back and forth, but there we go. If you now press
You
this
can
check
pop
mark,
out the window.
yeah, but I'm only sharing the sim window at the moment, so
Yeah.
it works. But I think we'll manage like this. So what you can see here is then basically I'll zoom in again to explain a little bit more of the details here. So what we can see here is the next checklist that's going to be relevant, and there's some items which are sensed, so which the system actually fills in automatically, and the ones with a checkbox in front of it we have to check manually. So if you click on the RTO arm again, we can, for example, see that if we disable it now, it tells us auto brake is we have to set it to RTO, otherwise it won't get green. So we're going to do that again. And then basically, of course, pilot flying calls a checklist, then we go into the taxi checklist, and then basically we can check all of these items here, which basically say flight controls are checked. We can actually also do this right now. So we can go into the automatic mode of the system display again, which basically tells us it always displays the relevant page for the current flight phase. And if I'm now on the ground just before takeoff and I move the flight controls, then we can see the flight control page coming up. And for example, we can do full left, full right, neutral, Then for the elevators, we can do full up, full down, neutral, and also, of course, the rudder. We can do rudder full left, full right, and neutral. And what's also interesting to see here, of course, for the rudder, as we've seen previously as well, the two different parts of the rudder kind of move a little bit differently because of the different forces involved there. It's like different actuation forces we have on the hydraulic side. So this again also shows how detailed our hydraulic system are.
Yeah, I noticed that when you were showing us earlier the exterior view of the rudder, and I was actually going to ask why the smaller part moved before the larger part of the vertical stabilizer.
And I think only one of the two surfaces have the yaw damper. If kill me if I'm wrong, but I think it's how it is.
Could be, yeah. So I think it's also different compared to the A320, right? Because I think we have only one segment on the A320.
Yeah,
but
only one with 3 actuators.
Yeah. All right, let's check these items. So flight controls are checked now. Flap setting is config 2. Confirm that. Radar is on, but it's not implemented right now, so it doesn't matter. And then if we now go to takeoff config test, then we can see, okay, everything is fine, takeoff config is normal. And we can check the checklist, so taxi checklist complete. And now we are basically set for takeoff.
Anything new or unique with the flight plan, or how you input a flight plan?
Yeah, so compared to the A320, yes. So the interface is very different. We don't have the MCDU with a kind of the line select keys and the scratch pad, but we do have a cursor and keyboard system. So for example, if you want to change a field, you kind of click into it. So in the real plane, this is done using the keyboard control unit down there. So that's kind of a trackpad and a cursor. And so navigate to this different fields. They are mostly also auto-selected somehow, and you can just like enter into them and display and validate and enter things. And if you want to do it here, we can just put with my keyboard, for example, now FPW123. That's our flight number. And in our implementation, if you press enter, then it validates and changes if the input is correct. And we can, of course, also use the keyboard if we enable the keyboard switch here. We can also select the field again, and then let's do this field, and then also type in pretty much the same, just using the keys over here, and then enter is our validate button again. But I personally find it more comfortable to use the keyboard of my PC, so I'm just going to use that.
Mostly. Yeah, I agree.
And yes, so there's a lot of different pages. I think this would be maybe too long for today, but we can quickly cycle through them. So of course we have the IRS, so the Inertial Reference System page with the alignment status. Then we have the departure, which you can select. So for once, you can select the runway. We are on 12 left here. And I think this departure is, this one. And we can insert it into the flight plan, for example. Then if we go to we'll also cover this later. If we go to the init page again, we can also look at the different navigates we have, as well as manually tune the ILS if we want to, but they're mostly tuned automatically, so we don't need to do this. The fuel and load page is something which we saw earlier. So if you want, we can enter a cost index here, but should already be entered, I think. And what we also seen earlier was the takeoff performance page. It's not filled right out at the moment. Okay. I think I deleted it. Yeah. Let's put in the V-speeds again because it changed the runway.
Yeah.
So there we are. And that's it. And we can of course also see the performance for the different flight phases. So for takeoff, for the climb phase, for cruise, for descent, as well as approach phase, and if it comes to be the go run phase as well. And of course the system cycles automatically through them, and our flight phase and basically our flight management computer in the backend does everything for you. Yeah.
Very nice.
So yeah, and there's actually a lot of work. So it's not only the front end which you see here, but a lot of stuff behind the scenes to actually make sure that if we want to see it on the navigation display, the paths are getting drawn correctly, and we have lateral and vertical navigation behind it. Also the correct modes are, for example, armed. So we have the climb mode and navigation mode, which will be active after takeoff. So a lot of stuff which takes a lot of time. but it's not 100% visible to any user if you just
Right.
use it, because you just expect it to work. But basically nothing is a given, so you have to do everything, of course.
Well,
In the end
as
to
a
make it work.
typical user, it looks like it's working pretty good to me.
Yeah, so I think the FMS for A to B flights, I think, is in a pretty good state.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is a system where, except fixing bugs, we need a lot of things to do at the moment. But I think there's of course a few other examples. For example, if you look at the systems display, most pages are in a very good state right now, but there are also one or two pages where we need some adjustments still, and really have to make sure that they are accurate and show the right data and so on and so forth. Yeah, so I think concluding it, I think there's one thing which I also can show you after cycling through the different system display pages, which is basically some of the eCam abnormal or like faults we have. But let's finish this first. So we have the electrical system, which is split into AC and DC, kind of a little bit different also than the
And all
A320 here.
those systems are being calculated and simulated in the background, right? The electrical, hydraulic, AEC, all that stuff.
Yes, right. Yeah. So with a varying degree of fidelity, but I think for most systems, for example, the electric systems are, from my point of view, very, very advanced and have different. We have all the buses models and the different interconnections and so on. And I think our example of the system with the highest fidelity is the hydraulic system, which seems very simple here, but has a lot of different inner workings behind the scenes. Maybe we could also try to demonstrate it with by activating some fault, but that is for David to decide whether he wants to show it. But yeah, then of course we have the APU,
We
which
can
is
try.
also separate. Yeah, we can just try and see what happens. Yeah. Then of course the air
Basically,
conditioning.
this plane can run without any hydraulics. That's one of the point of the A380. You can disable all hydraulics and it will fly pretty much normally.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. Yeah,
So
I'm
let's
just thinking back.
Yeah, sure.
No, I was just thinking back to the last time you guys were here a year ago, and at that point we're like, wow, that was impressive. But you guys have doubled and tripled the amount of work that you've put into this thing so far, with all the different pages and screens and eCam memos and so forth. So there's a lot of work you guys been doing here. Not sleeping. People say, "Oh, you guys are sleeping on the job." No, actually, that's a lot of work when I look at it and think about it.
Oh yeah, and we're all really, really focused on getting the airplane out as soon as possible. So it's not like we're like playing around here and basically trying to somehow prolong any release or something. We're really working really dedicatedly on making this happen and having it available for all of the users, because we know that a lot of flight simmers are really expecting this aircraft and want to fly it. And that's why some of us are. It feels like we're working day and night, which is also to some extent because we work in a lot of different time zones. So it feels like really development is happening 24/7. So maybe let's look at one fault maybe from the navigation parts, which is the radio altimeters, and then we can try to look at a fault of the hydraulic systems. But what you can also see is, so basically this is our failure system in the electronic flight bag. And using this, we can enable or disable different systems. And what we can do now is we can just try to disable the radar altimeters A and B. And what we, of course, then also can see is on the engine 1 display, similarly to the A320, but done a little bit differently, we can also see the abnormal systems here. So it detects a fault. In this case, from navigation, the radio altimeters systems A and B are faulty. There's no actions for us except clearing it. We just have to kind of know about it. So we can, for once, go to the status display or status page of the this system display, and we can see here, for example, that radio altimeter system A and B are failed. That's why also CAT 3 landings are failed as well now. And as an info, we can see that we have CAT 2 only landings right now. And so what we can do now is pretty much just clear it, and then the EWD returns normal, and basically that's it. What we can also do is now try to simulate a failure of the hydraulic systems. Davey, which one should we take? Which one's best? Let me just give me a second to go to the hydraulics page and go here.
Well, you could try to fail some engine bumps, maybe. Never tried, so
Okay, let's see. So we have engine 2 pump A overheat, right? Let's do that for a second.
Maybe
Um,
something where we have some impact on the flight controls, where you can see the spoilers different actingly according to. I think you have to turn off some more pumps for this, I believe.
Yeah, I think you have to fail a lot of things to actually get into a state. Whereas some of the
Yeah, and those are
systems don't.
just overheating. So the fact is we are simulating the thing heating up,
Yep.
like losing its bearings. Then it will heat up the fluid and do some crazy stuff, but it might not be instantaneous. So
Yeah, so this takes a little while. Yeah. I think maybe faster would be maybe a reservoir leak. We can see the levels go down then maybe.
yeah, kill everything.
Yeah, we just kill everything.
Yeah,
So
just
let's
kill
see.
everything.
So basically, it's hard to fail an A380. Backups
Yeah,
on
I mean there's a
backups.
lot of redundancy in there. So now we can see a little bit happening here. So what we see is that the pressure on the green system is low, and what it tells us here is basically the green reservoir air pressure is low. And what we have to do for that, if the pressure is fluctuating, which is not at the moment, but then we would have to disable the green engine 1 and 2 pumps A and B. And now we can actually see the overheat working. So we have the hydraulics green system overheat, which now tells us actually pretty drastic measure. So we have to disable the engine 1 and 2 pumps A and B from the green system, and actually also disconnect these pumps. So
And
this is
disconnection
something
is forever.
Yeah, so that's non-reversible. That's also why it's a guarded switch.
Yep.
We can see that in a moment. So let's only deal with the green system overheat right now. So what we're going to do is the engine 1 pump A and B off. So we'll go to the overhead panel. We can, of course, I mean, Airbus planes are really, really smart. So we can already see the respective lights going up in the core switches here. So we can disable the pumps A and B from the green system for the engine 1. And we can actually also see here that the ECIM confirms this action. So one thing which is missing here is kind of the automatic line shuffling. So if the first item is completed, we go down to the second line. This is something which we implement right now, but we still see the sensed item working. Let's basically disable everything. So these as well. And as we said earlier, we now have to disconnect them, which is non-reversible. That's why they are guarded with these red guards. And we have to disconnect the pumps for the green system. And then we can see,
And the
okay.
yellow part just died as well. So no. So you
Oh
just
yeah, we disabled also
lost
the yellow part,
everything.
right? Yeah.
But I think we should have now some visible differences on the spoilers, I believe, right?
I
Yeah,
think we
because
should
the
have.
spoilers only have one panel, which is an electrical system backup.
Yeah. So we can also see the impact on the flight controls page quite well. So for example, what you see now is that the outermost aileron has failed, so we can only actuate the inner two. If you now go left and right, then the pitch trim, I think, is also failed because it relies on the green and yellow system. But for some of the controls, and actually most of the flight controls, we still have an electrical backup available. So if you want to go to the outside, hopefully we can do that. We can just see at the zoom in a little bit maybe, and we can still see some of the ailerons working. But for example, the outer aileron here has a droop because it's just not supplied hydraulically. And if you look at the elevators, it's also working.
It's all
The radar is
electrical
also
right
working.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it's slower, right?
Davey,
Yes.
I just have a question. I think it's yet not implemented, but could we make it that when we have airflow, that the outer ailerons are then going into the middle? Because I think when you fly up, they will stay centered, right?
Yep. Yep. It's all model. So the airflow will just move the surfaces
Oh, okay.
as they should. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, very good. Let's go inside again.
So
So-
now it's a bad idea to lose electrical system. But the rat
You want-
is modeled, so you can use the rat if you
Yeah,
need.
but not when you're on the runway staying.
Yeah, on ground it won't do much, I guess.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But I think we failed enough. And so what we're trying to say is basically you can fail a lot of stuff still, even though it's not a primary goal right now. But due to the systems being implemented in such a depth, it comes as a good byproduct that we can just fail these systems and have also the influence pretty accurately modeled. So that's what we're also quite proud of.
Yeah, I'm
Yep, I
surprised you
think
guys have any failures modeled already. A lot of times at this stage, developers are like, yeah, we want to do failures, but we want to finish the plane first. And like you said, the
Yeah.
fact that you guys already have the systems modeled, it just comes down to just turning it on or off with a button in the EFB to actually fail it. And I actually think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the
Yeah, right.
failures working are pretty much a side effect of the development process, I guess. So we did not try to implement those, but they are there, so they work.
Any
And
plans
also,
in the future? I mean, again, far in the future, right? But any plans to implement a way where systems can kind of fail over time based on use?
That's for sure on our roadmap. So I don't think it's a thing we're going to do at the beginning,
Right.
because also some sort of quality of life feature in the electronic flight bag, for example, and having having these time-based failures and having event-based failures and so on is certainly interesting. But for now, it's not our focus because we are really, really focused on getting it out and don't want to take any detour of releasing or of delaying a release any further, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then I think as a last thing, what you can also see here as a difference to the A320, the engine warning display also displays the limitations. So we have a lot of things failed at the moment, and now the plane, because of that, tells us that, for example, if we do approach and landing, we can have a max speed of 220 knots. We should use flaps 3 for landing, sleds move slow, as well as for landing gear, we have gravity extension only. Also, we cannot activate the RTO function anymore from the auto brakes because they also rely on the hydraulic system somehow. And no auto land and a lot of stuff here, basically. Do you want to take over maybe and show something on your side?
Well, last year we already showed a lot of stuff about the hydraulics. Uh, the core architecture of the whole system is done, so pretty much just works. And there are some funny things like if you are pushed by the tug when taxiing or before taxiing, for example, it will detect that the nose is steered by the tug, so it will ask for the pumps to go. So it will help the rear steering to turn, for example. A lot of automatic systems are there and working, but still there are things that are not yet implemented, like the gear system is only a copy paste from the A32NX for now. So, well, it's not really easy to notice, but as we like details, we know it's not the real gear sequence, for example. So that's something that we'll have to wait because, as always, we try to push the details. And the 32NX gear system is really complex and has every part modeled, every hydraulic actuator which is working, and so it's a huge task to make the same level of detail for the A380. So you would have to wait for this to have the exact same level of detail as for the 32NX. But yet you will still be able to use, for example, the gravity extension. So yeah, for now it's in a good state to just use the plane, but there are some details that are not still yet there. But we will make it. And so there are some new stuff, like for example the A380 has a system that is able to keep the heading while you are taxiing. For example, if you get some crosswinds, the A380 will keep the heading of the airplane if you don't input any rudder or tiller control
Oh, wow.
inputs. And so that's something, for example, that we are modeling. So there are some functions that you should not notice but are there. So if you get some crosswind, for example, the plane will steer itself to keep the heading. So there are some nice features that are there or will be there anyway. as the same rule of thumb is there, it's if it's on the real one, you will get it at some point. So yeah, so we hope you'll enjoy this one.
I think we're learning more about the A380 from you guys than anywhere else on the internet or otherwise. This is
It's a crazy machine, actually. Yeah, each
yeah.
time you look into it, you discover a new function. It's really incredible.
The question is, I mean, I can't imagine where you have to source your information from for this aircraft. You know, not to give up sources, but how easy or how hard it is to source all this information bit by bit, piece by piece to implement it.
It's very hard. So I mean, we have to use all the resources we can get. Lots of YouTube videos, lots of material. For example, Airbus also publishes quite a lot about their systems, not only for the A320 or A330, but also A350 and 80. We have a bunch or a group of real-world type-rated A380 pilots, which you can ask specific questions. So it takes a lot of time getting these different references and different sources and asking pilots how this and that moves and behaves. But I think in the end, we all think it's worth it. So that's why it takes some time to implement it properly. But in the end, it's even more rewarding having this.
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth it. I mean, this is the reason why there is no other A380 in the sim world. Well, there's one, but it's not an A380. It's a 320 with an A380 skin. You know, it looks like it takes more than any other airplane out there to develop. To be honest, other airplanes have all the reference materials readily available, other than this particular plane. You know.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was curious about. Go ahead.
Yes, so sorry for cutting you off. And it's also very difficult actually finding people who can fly it and who are experienced with the plane, because of course the amount of people who are type rated on A380 is of course less than the amount of pilots we have for the A320 family. So yeah, it's a very special aircraft and a very special circle of people who have the opportunity to like fly it for a living. So yeah.
How's the painting coming along for the different liveries you have?
So in terms of liveries, it's like this, that we will actually release the 380X just with, I think, a plain white livery and our fly-by-wire livery, because I think it maybe take maximum 24 hours till the first liveries will be available. And we were also thinking a lot forth and back about, okay, if we want to release it with liveries, we would need to have livery makers. And this means also we have to choose some of them and kind of giving them an advantage of having deliveries at the first date directly somewhere. And we decided, no, we make it like this. We will release it just with plain white livery, fly-by-wire livery. And then it's really up to the guys out there. And yes, they are making a lot of good, nice work there for free also. And I believe it will not take long that we have liveries for it then.
That makes sense.
Very nice.
What's
Yeah.
what does the progress look like on sound? Is it complete? You guys happy with it, or you guys still working on implementing more sounds?
So sounds wise, it's like this. Boris, our audio specialist, is really hard. It's hard for him to get references, you know, because it's not like this that you could say, okay, I go often on a 380 to fly somewhere. So for a 320, you maybe have more the possibility to ask people, hey, if you go there, can you make a sound record of this or that? But with the 380, it's not like this that you find a lot of people who are going to fly with it daily wise and who you could ask. But Boris is still doing his stuff, trying to make it as much as realistic as possible. And this will be also going even after the release, ongoing progress. So if he finds something where he says, yeah, okay, this sounds really maybe better, he will try to get it in the sim for sure.
Nice. And it's already really, really awesome. So just if you go into the plane and dive into the kind of audioscape and hear all the different sounds of all the different moving parts and the engine and so on, to me, it's really, really astonishing what Boris has achieved here. And but of course he's a perfectionist, and then of course he knows about this much more than I or most of us do. So of course there's still things he wants to improve.
Gotcha. And what about the flight model tuning? How's that progress going?
Yeah, that's a big one. I think that's also one place or one point where we still would be happy about people who know about flight model tuning for the Microsoft Flight Sim. Because it's a lot of work getting different parameters right and making sure that actually fly is like the real thing. So the feedback from our type-rated pilots and also pilots from other aircraft which are similarly big, it is that it moves like a big airplane, and it already moves quite well. But there's a few specific things we are not 100% happy with. For example, some of the behavior on takeoff, where we might think that the THS, so the horizontal stabilizer, is maybe too effective. So that's why the plane lifts the nose up too early, or is a little bit too nose light. So it's a lot about tuning the details right now.
Yeah, we internally call it Cobra maneuver because yeah, we are dealing for a lot of time with this, and we noticed really that at a certain point, the nose is just lifting up, and it's like Cobra who want to fight. This is why we decided, okay, we call it like this, and everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Wow. So you guys were the first ones to have GSX integration in any airplane with the A320. Is that going to be day one with the 380, getting GSX integration in the plane?
So for GSX, it's to be honest, it's not a big deal to implement it, but it's just that we have some limitations on, for example, jet bridges and so on, because the 380 needs some more. And this means also that we have to see how we going to make this really happen. I think in the beginning, as far as I know, there's just a possibility to have just one jet bridge attached to the aircraft at the moment in the sim. So we have to see how this can be later implemented, but stuff like catering, cargo, this we will implement for sure, or is already, I think. And I don't know how it's actually working with the passengers. We might have to look more into this, so it's not a thing where we would say, okay, the passengers will walk in the 380 like you're expecting this on other aircrafts. So, but it's not like this that we say, okay, our main focus is to have everything from GSX implemented, but we try to make it as apparent as possible that you don't see in 380 in front of the gate and the cargo loading is taking the points from a 320 and it's looking awkward to you, because we also want that when you get inside that you really get immersed by everything. And this is maybe also a little problematic sometimes, especially for me when I model, because I want to make this little thing, this little thing, this little thing, but then you think about, we really have to see that we don't impact the performance too much. So there's also a lot of stuff which I have to tackle also and find a solution to get it inside. And with the GSX, we have to see, but I think the main generic stuff should be there, yes. But I don't know how high GSX can bring the refuel hose. We have to see.
So I do want to ask a couple questions about the future. So we talked about this off camera, but I want to kind of get it on record. Do you guys yet have the Microsoft 24 SDK?
Nope.
And my next question is, with the information we know about it so far, like for example, we know there's going to be like some sort of walk around mode. We've heard other developers starting to prepare their exterior models at higher detail to expect people to get a bit closer to their 3D models than they have in the past. Is there anything like that or any other things you guys have even thought about yet as far as what you could do in preparation for the new sim?
So the problem is for us, we don't know, for example, if we will have a lot of improvements, how the sim will handle the model. So not the flight model, the actual 3D model. We don't know how he will handle the textures. So for us, it will be, we will make a step in the cold water with everything when it's getting released. Like everybody has the first day with it. And for us, it's like this. I don't think and I don't see that we get it maybe earlier. And to be honest, we are really focused to get it on 2020 running because all of our development is based on this. And if we then would say, now it's coming, or now this is there, what we are going to do, it's not like this that we then say, okay, let's release it 2 years later or so. I don't know how long it will take to get it from 2020 ported to 2024. So, but for us, our focus is to get it done for 2020. And as soon as we are able to release it, we will release it for 2020. And about 2024, yes, we have to see what we do by then.
Is there anything else that we missed that any details that we missed that you wanted to kind of talk about or that we missed that we didn't ask you?
So nothing comes to mind for me. I think we went over most of the important parts. I think we could all talk about this aircraft for hours.
Yeah.
But I think at some point it wouldn't be too interesting for the listeners. So I think we found a good compromise between showing the depth we have and kind of showing the systems we're all so excited about. But I think also keep it somehow short and interesting.
Yeah, I'll admit that before when I first heard you guys were making A380, I was like, okay, that's great. Like we need that. We don't really have a high fidelity A380, and I'm really glad that Fly-by-Wire, of all people, right? You guys, I know you know this already, but you literally carried the first year or two of Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 with the 320, right? And so with you guys the community has so much respect for you guys, and when we found out you were making an A380, we were all like, oh my god, this is going to be the best aircraft ever. And based on the previews we've seen for the past year and some, we still do believe that. Now, I mean, I hate to kind of lay this on you, but the expectations are pretty high. You know what I'm saying? Just because of what you've already shown. It's not like you've said, hey, we're going to do this. It's more like you've showed us what you've already done. And based on what we've seen, our expectations have been set, and they've been set really high, right? Because you're doing things at an excellent level. And as I was going to say was that I honestly never had much interest in the A380 aircraft. People are going to hate me for saying that, but it's just like it always looked a little weird to me. I wasn't that interested in it until you guys came on the scene and started showing us the finer details and differences between it and the rest of the Airbus family. And now I'm really excited. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good hearing that. So I think the expectation is one thing which me personally, sometimes I'm a little scared of that because I think the expectations are really, really high. And at some point, I think, okay, we might have to do some expectation management, that this won't be a finished aircraft in the end. But we really wanted to have something which the community can work on together with us and improve from there and so on. But I think we can also be really, really proud of what we achieved so far. And also from the feedback, what we got from our testing group right now is also that it flies really well, and it's a lot of fun to move around and to fly.
I have one, maybe a hard question I would like to ask, but we got to ask these questions. I'm pretty sure you're aware that you have some competitors considering making A380s as well. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're not the only ones implementing the A380, and of course also the A320NX. I mean, the A320 is also something where there's other vendors on the market. But we're not too scared of competition because we think it just makes the product better in the end for the users. And I think we also might have a little bit different focus here because we do a lot of things which would be totally bonkers, totally insane if you would have to run a company and would have to actually bring out a product and have to pay developers for a long time. And so basically what I'm trying to say is you won't reach the fidelity which we are having, I think, if you are running a company which is interested in having profit for a specific kind of product. So
Yeah,
this
there's
is,
no
I think
way.
there's a certain, I think there's a certain level where you just stop the development and say, okay, for the end user, it's good enough. What is happening behind the scenes is nothing the normal user will notice. So it doesn't make sense to model the cavitation of the hydraulic pumps, or it doesn't doesn't require to model any of the deeper systems we have right now. And I think that's our advantage we have. So we do not have to stop at these points. If there's someone, some crazy person like Davey wanting to implement a hugely detailed hydraulic system, that's what we can do, and that's what we will do.
So basically, that translated, if you're out there trying to make an A380, you can stop now because Fly-by-Wire got this.
As I
No,
said, we
it's
have
not.
more competition, but yeah.
It's not like this that we say, okay, so we want to be better or something. For us, it's like we are enjoying what we are doing. We have this passion, and sometimes I really sit on my PC, I watch our Discord channels, and I'm like, wow, why is so much going on, you know? And it's like we are so much passion driven that we are not really seeing we have a competition going on, because for everybody of us, all of this development is a huge learning process, and you are learning so much about everything what is related to what you are working on. It's kind of you're taking a course of learning something, but it's for free, and you can enjoy it with a lot of people who you have all the time around, because due to the different time zones, all the time something is going on. And it's more appreciation to be part of this process as to think about, oh, we have a competition with those and those. Because
Yeah, totally.
also I like to maybe look on their models, on their textures, and think about, what could we do, you know? So it's a lot of stuff which you then also can think about, hey, why they are so clever, why I didn't make this, you know? So it's also you also have to admire the other project somehow, because it's also helping you to develop yourself and to learn stuff.
So basically, looking at other projects, not even A380s, it gives you ideas to say, you know what, maybe I could do this differently, or maybe I could do this better based on what you've seen been done by somebody else before.
Yeah, like this, or I wouldn't say better. I would more say make it the best way, in terms of then also thinking about you have the performance stuff, which a lot of times is making your life stressful when you're modeling or texturing, because you, if it's me, I would model every single screw which is in this aircraft, but we can't do
The
this.
only thing that is stressful about texturing is your requests.
Hello, Mike. Yes,
Hello.
this is also what Mike want to say with this is that I somehow try to request more than sometimes actually maybe is needed for the realism, but it's there, you know.
Yeah, it's
then
there. Yeah,
we
it's
need to
necessary.
think about, okay, maybe we don't need this. But when you then see other aircrafts, how they dealt with the same problems like us, you can think about the way how they were thinking to maybe make it the right way, which would improve it to make it better for the actual aircraft.
Yeah, I think that I mean I know that because you guys are a freeware team, it's very difficult for the payware guys to compete when it comes to time, on certain details and things like that. But I do believe that, when people look at your finished product or even your alpha product, whenever it comes to become public, I think that other developers, other teams will look at it kind of as, a new standard in some areas with like, hey, I never thought to do it that way, or the level of detail they done here is like, wow, we could do that too. Maybe we could just find a more efficient way of doing it or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think that even ever since the 320NX release, as a end user, because I'm not a developer, I've always seen fly-by-wire as the standard. And whenever I look at other aircrafts, I kind of expect at least what you guys have done. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know. It's what we've done is a lot. It's 3 years of really every day almost work. So you can't exactly expect that from everybody else. I mean, that's a lot to ask. We've done a lot of stuff, but yeah, there's definitely certain things they're going to look at and say, yeah, well, maybe we could do this differently or do this differently. And we especially myself, have worked with other developers already on things that we can improve from them and what they can improve from us. Folks like Bluebird, people from Bluebird Sim, and Phoenix. We've taken certain things from them and used different methods that they've used for texturing and modeling and vice versa. So yeah, there's many examples of that. But yeah, I don't know. As a benchmark, when this A380 comes out, that's going to be probably hard to beat.
And that's actually you mentioned something earlier that I wanted to ask you guys before I let you go, and that is fly-by-wire seems to be a large group of very, very talented programmers, engineers, artists, all types of talents. And what you guys have been around for a good 4 or 5 years as well as fly-by-wire since Microsoft 2020 came out. Have there been opportunities for you guys, either as a team or even as individuals, to work with other third parties or get other companies to, kind of as a career? Has this helped you in your, I'm saying your portfolio, for example?
So for myself, at the moment, no, but I've seen other guys who had the opportunity to get a job somewhere and working what they done before for free, and others are also created their own companies or businesses like Boris did. So I'm really happy to see this also, that yes, you have maybe the possibility to get in contact with other developer companies, especially when you're on FS Expo or FS Weekend, and talking with them, and maybe also thinking about your own future. And because it's not like this that we say to someone, okay, you have to stay here and you cannot go somewhere. No, of course, everybody is free, and we are really happy to see when someone, for example, get an offer from another development company and says, hey, we saw your work and we really appreciate your work and we would like to have you on our team here. And
Yeah, and I think
to
due
see
to
this
our
is
work,
really good.
so sorry. I think due to our work being open source and basically on display for everyone, I think it's also a good way to, if you want to do it, of course, showcase your work and showcase your talent as a software developer or as a 3D modeler or as a texture artist or as a systems developer. There's so many ways to really like show what you can do. And as you said earlier, I mean, we have a team of extremely smart people. Some of us know the aircraft inside and out by heart. Some of us do physics modeling that no one else or that I myself couldn't imagine, and some of us knock really good avionics systems out of the park. So it's really a joy to watch all of these people work together, and it really motivates you a lot.
Got a question near and dear to me. VR. I've been flying in VR recently, and it's blown me away. Has anybody on the team looked at your plane through VR as yet? Or how will it work in VR? So forth and so on. How's that process? Is it different from the regular development, or is this all in one with VR itself?
I've flown the airplane in VR. It's I have a really good system spec now. I did an upgrade on my system and it's works great. It's actually the most real, close to real that I've ever had in the sim in VR is when you take the A380 in VR. I don't know. I just joined a couple minutes ago. My apologies, but I don't know what they discussed in terms of performance, but there could be performance improvements that we should be making, so that users who are going to fly in VR have decent performance on regular spec machines, because VR is very demanding to begin with. In terms of development on VR itself, we haven't really needed to do anything. All the click spots and interactions and stuff, that's all default within the sim. So you just enable
not
VR,
really,
and
with the
then
click spots, this is also on the XML. You actually have to make everything, name everything. So this is also work what was done behind the scenes somehow.
okay, see,
Because
not even I knew about it. Okay, so
because
someone sat
sometimes,
there and edited the XML for hours.
yeah, unfortunately someone had to do this, but yeah, the good thing is also that a lot of buttons and stuff you were able to port over from the 320NX, because in the beginning we actually started with this. So this was our base. We just had a 3D model of a 380. Or I mean, at this point it wasn't even looking like a 380, let's say it like this. And we just had the system from the 320NX, and from there on we kinda made the same development like Airbus did, to go from a 320 base to a 380. But coming back to your question for VR, it's like this, that yes, of course, the click spots are important. And we didn't focus on VR. We just sat some time with a VR headset there and we're looking on some stuff, especially me for 3D modeling. I don't know how many hours I spent in VR to go through the 3D model and check every angle and think about if this is right or not. But so texture-wise or performance-wise, we didn't yet focus on VR. So it's also, huge performance demanding, because when you think about flying an A380, you're most of the time at a busy airport. If you then want to have the most realism, you have traffic on, everything, then GSX, and
I don't
everything
even
of
know
this is
I could run
eating a
that.
lot of performance.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
not
gonna be
like this
tough.
that we say, or we'll give a guarantee, okay, this is VR approved later.
Mike, if you don't mind me asking,
Mhm.
what VR headset are you using? And I know in Microsoft,
Mhm.
which one?
The HP Reverb 2.
Reverb 2. And
Mhm.
also in Microsoft, it does allow you to have a separate VR setting than a separate regular sim setting.
Yeah, as far as the user goes for VR, you literally plug in the headset, you make sure the headset software is up to date. It auto launches, I think, the Oculus software for
Okay.
using the HP, and then in the sim you just enable VR, or the sim just will auto recognize that you have VR, and then when you put it on and the sensor on the headset detects that you're wearing the VR headset, it will swap over to VR mode, which is a totally different set of settings for graphics and textures and stuff that you can customize, and it saves it, which is great. And you can just go
Unfortunately, not the texture settings. You have to, because there's, I don't know, this MSFS VR bug, that when you have your texture setting in a non-VR setting set on ultra, and you put it in the VR settings on medium, it will not switch when you are in the sim. You actually have to
close the
go
sim.
on the texture set with which is non-VR, put it there on medium, close the sim and reload, because the sim is not able to reload the textures in a lower quality at this point.
Didn't know that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's good to know, and that will definitely improve performance on VR. But I'll tell you what, when it does work, it's insane. And Rep and I have even considered the fact that if you had a laptop, an insane laptop configuration, right, Rep? You know where I'm going with this?
Mhm.
And you have the headset on, and you walk into the airplane, or you start from the cockpit or something from the default position, and you get up in VR, and you're in the real airplane, but you're wearing a VR headset holding the laptop, you could literally walk around the cabin in VR and it would line up. Everything would line up.
Wow.
The stairs, you could go up to first class, you could sit in a seat and then take it off and you're in the seat.
That's
So
nuts.
it's crazy. Yeah. So that would be a cool experience to have.
That will be
And
cool.
it was also for me the first time I actually used a VR headset in a flight sim was, with the 380. And the funny thing about this was I was sitting there and I was looking on the switches and I was like, they are tiny. Something is wrong. But as people might know who are sitting in real cockpits, because later on I had the possibility to sit in one cockpit, they're really that tiny and looking so fragile. And then I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, in VR it was looking the same, and I was thinking it's not right, but sitting here now in the real one, looking on the switches and knobs, they're really
the
that
scale.
tiny.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's really amazing, and you to see the scale of things in VR and the scale of the A380 and how high you're sitting up off the ground. I mean, you can open up the window in our model and look outside in VR and look down, and it's loading everything still, the wing and the engines and the gear. It's really something that everyone should try at some point.
definitely will.
I think my first flight will definitely be in VR because once you look at the VR, you can't go back. And the thing about VR, I've looked at the A320 you guys did in VR, and that's where you actually get to see the real work that you did with the 3D model and texturing close up. You know,
Yeah, if
that's
you have a good enough
but-
headset, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
but just as a disclaimer, please don't expect putting your VR headset on, going in the 380 for the first time,
hmm
and having the best performance. It's something which I said already in the beginning, that everything which is performance related, doesn't matter if it's the systems, textures, or the 3D model, is still in progress and will be also in progress after release.
hmm
So it could be for some people that they will get a shit show, and sorry for that. But yes, the problem is the 380. I mean, if you think about textures, how much faces of texture or how much surface of texture you actually need to wrap around the 380, to wrap around the seats and everything. And then you think about, okay, there's a slimy little 320. Then, it's the comparisons are really difficult to make between those. But we also know that people want to sit in the cockpit. People maybe don't want to care about the cabin behind them because they just want to have a smooth ride.
And it's also helpful that, like for the seats, all the seats, right? You just texture one row of seats, and then Rep has cleverly figured out how to make that mesh the same so that you're only loading one seat texture and you're seeing all of the seats, but they all are arranged differently in different places, so it looks like it's different. Each seat is different, when in reality it's loading the same texture just once across all the different classes of seats. So it's not too bad. The cabin has been surprisingly not too heavy on the total hit of texture size, but we did a good job with that. Rep did a great job with that. He might have touched on that earlier.
Yeah, he showed us a little bit earlier. Actually, I was impressed
Oh,
because I was
okay.
surprised that you guys actually included a cabin because of the size of the aircraft. So I was really impressed that you guys showed both the lower and upper deck, which is pretty cool. I think people are gonna be excited about that.
The thing is like this with the cabin, I would say it was more or less like an accident, because I think last year I was a little bit on modeling, not sleepy, but not the most active one, to be honest. Sometimes it's like this, And then we had FS weekend, and I was thinking, what could I do maybe for this? Then I just started to make the first class seats, and I was like, okay, we can then show a little bit of seats. Yeah, and by accident, I then made also the premium economy and the economy behind of this.
And then
And the
500
doors.
seats later,
And the overhead and
Yeah.
the ceiling. The cabin you can thank directly. You can directly thank Rep for the cabin and all the work he's done for that.
amazing. I think everybody will be very happy. And another thing
Mhm.
is you don't have to hear that question. Are you doing a cabin? Are you doing a cabin? Are you doing a
Oh
cabin?
yeah. Mhm.
One
This
more
was
quick.
also giving me no. I don't want to say this was giving me motivation because then people will start with other stuff. No,
Yeah.
but this is also, what you sometimes had in your mind. Oh, this would be a nice surprise, I think, So to be honest, I mean, you just had to make 3 different seats for the 3 different classes and copy paste them. So it's also not that. I mean, yes, it was unfortunately, but for me, it was also where going back to the learning stuff. I was learning so much stuff in that time when I made those stuff because it's not like this complete hard surface. You also have a little bit of organic shape in between.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about maybe I changed something in the cockpit which could look better. But then I was thinking, no, Mike don't want to retexture everything. So
Absolutely not. Nope.
Speaking of that, so real quick pivot, real quick. I don't want to keep you guys for too long, but we've talked a lot about the A380. I'm not sure if you guys can answer any of these next questions, but are there any updates coming for the 320NX and the FSLTL thing that you guys have?
I'm not
So
sure.
for the FSLTL thing, this is just in our installer, if I remember correctly. So it's not really developed by us.
Oh, okay.
It's
So it's a
just
different people doing that. Just
yeah,
it's in your installer.
right.
Gotcha.
And for the A320NX, I don't know if maybe Davey or Flowey would have more to tell because at the moment, modeling wise, we had the other update December last year, and at the moment we are trying more to focus on the 380.
So I remember
Yeah,
I
so
had last heard that you guys were planning on redoing the like fuselage or something, or like kind of making it completely your own instead of using Microsoft's 3D model for the exterior and
So
stuff.
our actual goal is to have also our own model, but as at the moment a lot of work is going into the 380, we have some people who are not involved in the 380, but they said, hey, I want to model on the 320. Is there some stuff going on which I can model? And we said, yeah, why not? If you want to try, you can do. So we have some contributors who are actually working on the model, but it's not like this that you could expect huge progress in this at the moment. Just some small stuff, it's like more at the moment a small side project what the model and retexturing afterwards is related to.
But
Gotcha.
still on the system side, there have been a lot of stuff, or there has been a lot of stuff which has been implemented in the last few months. So we do have a new takeoff performance calculator in the electronic flight bag, for example. We had a big update in the flight management system backend, which is also the same backend which we're using in the A380, for example. So most of the systems we develop for the A320, we can also use for the A380, and actually also vice versa. So as Rep said, we are mostly focusing on getting the A380 now in a state which is releasable for a development preview or for alpha version. That's why we won't see as much progress on the A320X right now. But for us, after we release the alpha version of the A380X, of course, it's for us a priority to get another stable version out for the A320. But if you're keen on trying out the latest features on the A320 and see what we've done in the last half year or maybe 1 year, I can just suggest you to download the development version via the installer. And this is kind of the latest state of things we have. So for example, with the new takeoff performance calculator, with a lot of systems upgraded, a lot of nitty-gritty details here and there. But yeah, I mean, so I think after the A380, we're going to see a new stable update and a more stable version then.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I open the FlyByWire installer every day, and there's always an update. So I had to ask if you guys had anything going on there. But cool. Well, guys, unless you guys have anything else to add, thank you so much for taking the time to answer our questions and update the community on the progress of the A380. I know that me and XPR and the rest of the community are extremely excited about flying A380, about seeing the A380 As you know, it's a very important project. It's not many out there for any simulator. And so for there to be an A380 incoming at this level of detail, at this level of fidelity, I think the community will be very happy to see.
I'm tempted to say hurry up with the project, but based on what you guys are showing me, I'd say, you know what? Take your time and do what you think you have to do to get this the right way before you release it, because you guys are so passionate about it, and everything you guys have put into the sim so far that you've shown us just looks excellent and good and detailed. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, XP. Appreciate it. Thank you, Blue.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Fly-by-wire team giving us a very good and detailed update on the upcoming A380. We're all looking forward to it. So let's give them some space, let them do their work, and no more questions about when. You have enough to look at and digest and enjoy, and just prepare your sims and your settings for display when it comes out. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. See you in another episode. Take care. Bye.